I think it's important to talk about two things when you're talking about the wholesale community. The first question is, what level of expertise does my wholesaler have? And the second and more important question is, what is my wholesaler good at? So the way you answer the first question is when you're speaking with your wholesaler or speaking with any potential wholesaler you're working with, you want to ask them about what they do on the spot if an account is declined. I generally find accounts are declined a third of the time because you're not on the same page with the carrier. They don't understand the risk. A third of the time because the submission could have been improved. You could have maybe backed them into claim prevention procedures. You could have, better described the account in a way that is more conducive to the appetite of the market. And a third of the time strictly for appetite. So if you want to essentially figure out what level of expertise your wholesaler has, when you go ahead and ask, what do you do when the account is declined? What you're looking for is the wholesaler to give you their strategies to turn an account declination into a quote. More importantly, I find a lot of retailers do not understand what their wholesalers are good at. Well, how do you figure out what submissions are the best submissions to send to your wholesaler? The answer is one that you may not expect, and it's one that you should try with your current wholesaler, and you should try it today. What I would do is, if I was a retailer, I would go to my wholesaler and I would ask them on the spot to tell me about their best relationships with their markets, and then what do those markets do? And the reason you want to do this is simple. If you have a wholesaler that has a really good relationship with an A&E market, and they can tell you that A&E market does structural engineering really good, or they do design build really, really well, well, you have a wholesaler that you might not be sending A&E accounts to that has a fantastic relationship with an A&E market and is really knocking the cover off the ball. Same thing. You may see financial institutions business from time to time, but you may not know that your wholesaler has a great relationship with a underwriter that does mortgage banking insurance. So if you work with your several wholesalers, the best thing you can do is have a pen and paper and ask them about their best relationships and take notes. Because if you are sending business to your wholesaler that does not include some of those best relationships, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a wholesaler who can tell you on the spot that they have really great relationships on real estate, on insurance agency, on cyber, and they should be able to tell you on the call who they're going to call, why they're going to call them, what kind of relationship that they have with them, and why that market is effective for them. So if you want to essentially figure out how best to maximize your efficiency with that wholesaler, I would say do those calls, figure out where they're most effective, and the most important thing is watch the relationships that wholesaler mentions first, because the first one that they mentioned is probably going to be the market that they use the most, and then in descending order, which relationships are more effective for them. So if you're making a dossier of your wholesaler and you're trying to figure out which business is going to get the best results from every wholesaler, pay very particular attention to which market relationships they mention, in which order, and why they mention those markets. And in the event that your wholesaler tells you, they're not willing to mention a specific market, and you get the canned answer, we have great relationships with all of our markets, we do really well with everybody, find a better wholesaler. Because if they're telling you that, they're not on the phone enough, they are not willing to tell you their best relationships, and whatever the case may be, you don't know which wholesaler uses certain markets for certain things, and you're kind of guessing as to, how effective they can be for you in certain circumstances. So try it today. If you use 2 to 3 wholesalers, I would say give them all a call, ask them what they're the best at, and take notes. And then let your team know who said what. And then maybe I would say every quarter, ask the same question again and watch if the answer changes. Because I will always tell you that it's not uncommon for wholesalers to make new relationships as the years go on, for those relationships to change, for new aggressive underwriters to come on the market, and for them to make really good connections. And if you're monitoring which relationships your wholesalers like the most, you will unlock how aggressive that wholesaler could be, because the wholesaler is only as aggressive and only as effective for you as their markets are willing to be. And you want to find the wholesalers that are willing to go find those aggressive relationships and nurture them, and find those underwriters that are willing to do things in terms of, stretching the appetite so that, they can get more out of those relationships. And the most important thing is, if you have a wholesaler with really great relationships with their markets and they're willing to share that intelligence with you, which wholesalers you can get the fastest response from. I know off the top of my head 20 or 30 phone numbers I memorized. And I memorized those numbers because I know that if I need to talk about a specific submission with a market, I can call those numbers, I can talk to them about the account, and I know that they will look at my account first. And when you are under the gun with a really big piece of business, with a business that's important for you, and like for example, you need a wholesaler with a really great relationship with a real estate E&O underwriter, you want to know in your dossier that Bob Jones has a really great relationship with a real estate E&O underwriter, and maybe that underwriter is willing to do just a little bit more that might make the difference between you getting a boilerplate quote and you getting that market's best number with all the bells and whistles. And when you're presenting that quote to your insured, you just don't know how aggressive that market has been for you. And the only way for you to get a better shot at it is for you to ask your wholesaler ahead of time, hey, who's your best relationships? Who's being the most effective for you? Which numbers do you know off the top of your head? Under what circumstances would you send certain markets certain submissions? And then, keep those notes and watch how your relationships change. You may be sending the wrong submissions to the wrong wholesalers, and you may find that if you switch up, your submission flow and essentially maximize which submissions you're sending to wholesalers that can handle that business most effectively because of their developed relationships, your bind to quote ratio is going to double. And that's not uncommon, because if your wholesalers are talking to certain markets and they have a great relationship with them, and then that, now that wholesaler becomes way more effective for you, because you're not sending them a piece of business where maybe they're just sending it to the market for maybe the second time in a month, rather than, they have a fantastic relationship with that underwriter. They're sending them that business all the time, and that they're on a first name basis with them. So I would recommend to anybody that has a wholesaler relationship to find out where the relationships are specifically, and which wholesalers have which relationships with which markets, and watch how much more that makes you an effective retailer, having that additional intel about not just, oh, we have great relationships with anybody. Anybody can say that. Make them get specific. Make them explain to you their methodology when they get declinations, so that you understand how much more in the weeds they're willing to get when things get hard. And then make them go the extra mile to tell you not just we have great relationships with everybody, but who, when, where, and under what circumstances they would use certain markets for certain things. and then watch that relationship with the wholesaler become that much more productive. Thanks a bunch for listening, everybody, today. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.